On episode 317 of the Tennis Files podcast, you'll learn 5 strategy lessons from 5.0 Sectionals. Hey there, and welcome to another episode of the show. Really a pleasure to have you listening. And for today's episode, I'm actually recapping my experience playing in 5.0 Sectionals this past weekend in Ashland, Virginia, which is pretty much near Richmond. People probably know Richmond more than they know Ashland, which is a smaller town around there. But I had a great time there, and I'm going to give you 5 lessons that I've learned, plus some bonuses, because obviously I try to make, what I talk about something actionable for you all so that you can implement and improve your tennis games. But I went this past weekend with my 5.0 team that I captained from Montgomery County, Maryland. We had won our local league against 2 other teams, which allowed us to advance to sectionals. And there were 2 teams there, one team from Northern Virginia and another team from Richmond, Virginia. So they had the home court advantage, which, I won't spoil it for you, but we ended up going there on Saturday, actually arrived a couple hours before our 4 p.m. match. And the setup was that we would have 2 matches, one against each team, and then whoever either won both or won one and won on the tiebreakers. The first tiebreak, which I think had to do with sets, would advance to nationals and take first place. So got there around 2:00, got a nice warm up in with the team. We just brought 5 guys total. Actually was able to hang out with the women's team, which we're all friends with, so that was cool, and practice on the same courts. There were some high school tennis courts nearby the facility. I think it was Randolph-Macon tennis courts or whatever that was, but I think the college team plays there, so they were in pretty good shape. But the high school practice for about 30 minutes, and we arrived at around 3:15 to the facility and waited to get called. All the courts were full when we got there, and so there was maybe a minimal backup, I'd say, because they can actually call you 30 minutes ahead of your scheduled match time. But in our case, I think we went on around like 4:10, 4:15, something like that. But the lineup was, we had JB at number 1 singles, and then John, who's a super strong 5.0 player, with Tomas, who's also a great player. And then I played with Frederick at number 2 doubles. Frederick is an amazing doubles player as well, such great volleys. And so, it was a super tight match. My partner and I, we were down 3-5 in the first set to a couple of younger players from Richmond, from the team anyway. I'm not sure exactly where they're from. And actually, my doubles partner knew one of the players, who I think is a nephew of our friend. But we were down 3-5, and then we managed to reel off 4 straight games and win 7-5 the first set. And then second set, we got broken a bit early. I've noticed that my energy dipped a little bit lower, and so we lost that set 6-3, which, funny enough, I had input 6-2, and we had to get that changed. And then the third set, you play a 10-point tiebreaker, super tiebreaker in other terms. And so fortunately, my partner and I, we were down 4-1, I think it was, and then 5-2, but then we managed to reel off several points in a row, get to 9-6, and then close it out 10-6. So that was fantastic. And so at that point, I guess like a few minutes before that, we had known that our singles guy had lost his court, and then we weren't sure about our number 1 doubles, but it turned out that they had actually lost in the third set super tiebreaker. So we actually knew that we were down 2-0, but we also knew that every single court matters. As I mentioned, if you go 1-1, but you can, all 3 teams can go 1-1 and then win on a tiebreak of some sort. So we ended up winning our match, and that was great, at least, and then we had a nice dinner afterwards. And the scheduling was a bit tough because Sunday morning we had to play at 8 a.m., but really it would be 7:30 a.m. is about when we were called, because again, the 30-minute rule of being able to be called early. So we got to the courts around 7 o'clock. Luckily, we didn't have to go to adjacent courts to warm up, as obviously there wouldn't be any prior matches to 7:30 being on. But just a pretty early start. So, we dealt with it, obviously. We played Northern Virginia, and their singles player was super tough, and our singles guy battled really hard, and that one was a close one. I think it might have been 5-4 that he had dropped his match. But then our number one doubles finished first. I think they won, it was 2-5 or 1-5, something like that. And then my partner and I, Frederick, we won ours 2-3. And it was actually kind of funny that, not funny, I felt bad actually, our opponents that we knew, a great player, but he could not serve normally. So he actually had to serve underhand. And yeah, if he was able to serve normally, I'm sure it would have been a much closer match, obviously. But funny enough, he actually, the opponent who was serving underhand went up and had game points a couple times. So we managed to bring it back and break him every time. So that helped a lot. So at that point, we had won 2-1 against Nova, aka Northern Virginia. And then we needed Northern Virginia to beat Richmond. And if that happened, and if they beat them 2-1, then we would win on sets, most likely. But yeah, unfortunately, Nova lost 2-1 to Richmond. Initially, I was really feeling that the outcome we needed would happen because the singles player for Nova, I think, or one of them, maybe the Richmond guy, they used the wrong scorecard side. So we thought that Nova had won 2 first sets and lost 1 first set, but in fact, they lost the first set on 2 courts and then only won the 1 set on the other one. So yeah, Richmond won 2-1. Congrats to them. And what was really cool was just seeing so many friends down there. I mean, obviously my team, but also from the other teams. Big shout out to Dylan from Dill Plays. You probably have seen him either on Instagram or my podcast interview with him, which I'll link that one in the show notes, as well as my good friend Juan from Tennis Fitness. Check out him on Instagram as well. If you search Tennis Fitness, you'll see him there. And if you search Dill Plays, you'll see Dylan. And also, it was just super fun seeing them. Juan played for Nova, and Dylan, congrats, played for Richmond. And I have to say, both teams, all the guys that I met or played against, super nice, like very well behaved, fantastic decorum. So I got to give a big shout out to both of them. Just really fantastic. So yeah, so that was pretty much a summary. I mean, on a personal note, I was very pleased with my performance. I played excellent, except for that second set of the first match. Like I said, I felt like my energy dipped and I missed a few more returns than I normally would have. Also been working on my serve, took a lesson from a really good player here. So shout out to Hyan. So thanks for the help there, which helped my serve quite a bit. Great players down there, but they weren't able to attack it nearly as much as before. And, when you serve and you're not on the defensive, that's really nice, especially at the 5.0 level. So there's that. And, on a team note, I'm also super proud of the boys. The lads tried their best, and we were just so close. If we had just won a couple more points in that third set tiebreak for our number one doubles team in the first match, then we would have taken the whole thing. But for any of you two lads listening, don't worry. Really proud of you, and you tried your best. We also were missing a couple really fantastic players, as I'm sure each team probably has this issue. All teams, they probably aren't able to bring like everyone all the time. So Patrick and Bartol are 2 like top level 5.0s that, had they played, things could have been different, but you never know. So just really enjoyed that experience. But with that summary, I just want to give you, I said 5 lessons, I think, in the intro, but I have 5 and a few bonuses because I like to over deliver. But I think, I hope you enjoyed, the recap, but I want to give you actionable items that I learned just from playing this tournament. And I guess before I get into them, I hadn't played 5.0 sectionals in a few years, especially with the COVID going on and whatnot. And when it was when it was like 3-all in the first set or something around there, I just was so happy with just in the moment competing. Like I just loved it. So it was so fantastic. And I hope that you experience that when you play. But yeah, so here are my lessons that I learned. The first one is the importance of using the I formation and giving your partner their preferred ground stroke. So we did this quite a bit where on my serve, we'd usually have my partner Frederick cross left so that I could have my forehand. My forehand is, not to sound like overconfident, I guess, but it's been on pretty much on fire lately. I mean, I've had a ton of reps. We had, a lot of practices, playing a ton. And so I'm really feeling my forehand and just like being able to hit it and, very heavily and deep and put the other players on the defensive so that we can get Frederick or whoever my partner is. If it wasn't this weekend, balls to poach on is huge for us, obviously. And then on the opposite side, when Frederick was serving, I would generally cross to the right because Frederick prefers his backhand. He has an amazing backhand. He'll split step and move up and hit some sick backhand returns, especially down the line. I remember vividly. But, with that play, again, you're playing to your strengths, which is what you want, right? You want to be able to hit your favorite shots over and over again. This gives you the higher percentage chance to win. And this play, the I formation and having the player cross to the opposite side of where you want to hit your shot, preferred stroke, is so easy to execute. Anybody can do it. Especially in the lower levels, it doesn't even matter. Like, let's say if you time it a bit, if you leave a bit early and the opponent knows like, oh, okay, this space is vacated, I can hit to the other side. You're still getting, the server is still getting their preferred stroke, so it's not a huge deal. But then, on the opposite side of the coin, at a couple critical moments I remember in one of my service games, we actually called the opposite because the other team was getting used to a bit of us, doing the I formation to give the player their strength. So then on a few of, I think 2 consecutive points, we did, when I was serving I formation, and then Frederick would actually go to his right, and I would just commit to quick footwork to maybe try to get an inside out forehand. And it worked that I think at least one time Frederick picked off the volley, and then the other time they missed because they were confused, like, oh, they're going the opposite way, and made them think. So again, the I formation plus give the server their preferred ground stroke, really helpful. And then lesson number 2 is going after the weaker volleyer. So in both of our matches, it was really key to identify the weaker volleyer as we got, a lot more points against that player. For example, hitting dipping passes or heavy spin to the backhand volley, things like that. And, in each match, we had one player who had better hands, one player who maybe not so solid hands. And so that was just huge, especially on important points, we could target them. So there's not too much to that, really. You just have to be perceptive and just remember. And I would verbalize to Frederick a couple of times about that. And I think maybe he did to me too, just kind of a reminder. Sometimes, when you're in the point, you kind of forget that. So if you just, talk about it a couple of times, and the reinforcement doesn't hurt. Lesson number 3 is moving forward to the net when the opponent is backed up. And so I've always been, a singles player at heart. Like when I was a junior, I played, 98% singles tournaments. I mean, I actually don't even remember a doubles tournament that I've played. Maybe I remember one actually. Yeah, Maryland State's won that one. Yeah, that was cool. But anyways, it's besides the point. So, and I didn't play good doubles at that point, just baseline probably. But Frederick had told me, I think probably 3 or 4 times, maybe, I think 3 times, where there were some points, this is high level, 5.0 doubles, where he had hit quite a good deep shot, backing the players up, and then I didn't close. And that gave the opponent more space to hit a dipper, or kind of more space in between. So, on those occasions, either I wasn't moving forward enough, or I wasn't pinching to one side to where, obviously if they're pinned to a corner, you want to shift more to that side so that you can, because obviously like a cross-court angle for them is going to be ridiculously tough in certain cases. And so it's just that kind of that recognition of your movement. Your movement is so key in doubles, as we talked about in the first lesson. And so it was great to have such a amazing doubles player like Frederick to just mention that to me, so that I could remember that, and to work on that. It's something that I want to continue to work on. So again, just recognizing when you are on the offensive and you're positioning and moving forward to the net, or pinching to one side when your opponent is backed up. That's something to keep in mind. And Lesson number 4, practicing no ad points really pays off. So in this tournament, as you can guess now, when it got to deuce, we had to play no ad. So the returning side would pick who would return on the no ad point, and that's that. And so we had 3 team practices, which I was really grateful that the guys came out, and that helped a lot because we committed to obviously playing no ad for all of those practices. And we came across, as you can guess, tons of no ad points each time we went out, 10 plus each time. Well, maybe not that many times, but probably at least 6 to 7 no ad points each training session that we had when we played a couple sets each. But yeah, we did that, and then it really worked because I definitely, while there's always some sort of pressure, I felt way less pressure on the no ad points because we had been practicing that situation. So we had that sort of pressure feeling in the practices, and that translated. So, initially you're like, oh, okay, it's on me now. Like if I'm returning or if you're the net player, like, okay, I better be ready for anything, want to win this point. But at the same time, there was that recognition and calm of like, well, this is no ad point, but we've been practicing for this. And so I would say Frederick and I probably won like 60-ish% of the no ad points, if not more. I hesitate to say 70, but it was pretty high. It really made a lot of sense to practice no ad and just in general practicing pressure situations, practicing tie breaks. I've talked about this a lot with Jorge Capistani in particular because he's had these sessions on the summit and I think on the podcast too about pressure games. So yeah, just try to understand, figure out the format that you're going to be playing in the tournament and mimic that format. And also, even if you're not playing no ad, I mean, it doesn't hurt to have no ad. Sometimes you play no ad, have the pressure like that. But yeah, in general, just practice whatever format it is that you're playing. So in the USCA leagues now, they're short. I actually can't remember when the last time it was that we played deuces, again, because of the COVID situation. Time flies. But I do remember, I think last year in mixed doubles, we did no ad as well. And it was gender to gender. So, male serve to male, female serve to female. But yeah, this was huge because obviously, if you have 2 no ad points, it can change the tide of the match. It can be 2-all or it can be 4-0. Because you can imagine how critical that is to just be confident in those situations. And also, yeah, as far as who took it, I think you just want to think about who, like obviously the opponent, like their favorite serves, and I think it was mainly like who had been doing well in that service game, like who had been returning a bit better. And I think we might have tilted a bit more towards Frederick because players for some reason didn't realize like how good his backhand return is. So we did have him take the no ad points a little bit more. But I took some as well, of course, and wailed on that forehand. So that was fun. And then number 5 is to schedule multiple practices before the tournament. And also I'm going to add, which I don't have in my notes here, schedule a practice like before your match too, like maybe an hour before or so. But yeah, scheduling these practices, especially for USC leagues, you're just practicing with your pairs. So I had John and Tomas against me and Frederick a couple times, and we had JB playing singles with another teammate. Shout out to all my teammates. It's tough, as an aside, just choosing who to bring, to play. And with only having 2 matches, we just decided to bring 5 players for the 1 singles line and the 2 doubles line, which is what the format is for 5.0 men's and women's, as well as I think 2.5 as well. Whereas 3.0 to 4.5, they have 5 courts with 2 singles, 3 doubles. So that's just, very evident, just the more practice, the more reps. As me especially, I'm heavy on reps. The more I play, the better I feel the ball. And I was I've been playing great, and I had a match on Monday, the day after our sectionals tournament, and I played really well in that as well. My intensity was still very similar to the sectionals tournament, and I was playing well. It was fun with Ben. Won that one 1-4. But and then I have some bonuses for you. Bonus number one is understanding what your opponent likes and doesn't like, their strengths and weaknesses. We talked about that a little bit actually with lesson number 2, going after the weaker volleyer. But that's huge. Like, for example, I was trying to serve more flat first serves, but then in the second match, I actually found that our opponents were having trouble with topspin/kick serves. When my serve bounced high, for some reason, they were apt to hitting it out, I guess, because they had more flat strokes. And so I started hitting more second serves as my first serve with spin, and that worked well. So you got to understand, your opponent's strengths and weaknesses. Bonus number 2, maybe I'm going a little quicker now. I have tennis practice here soon, but timing the poach. So the higher the level, the more critical it is to time your poaches correctly. I actually found in the beginning of the first match that I was leaving a little bit too early on some occasions, I suspected, which allowed my opponents to avoid me at the net instead of being able to pick off their returns. So you do have to time that approach to where the opponent has already committed, their stroke. So generally it's going to be, right after the ball has bounced and then, their backswing is starting to be initiated. That's when you want to just quickly move. So that's optimal. And then bonus lesson number 3 is it's critical to practice your serve and returns for doubles. As I mentioned, I've been taking serve lessons recently and been making it a point to practice returns whenever I have a chance, even against warm-up serves, against opponents, maybe just returning a couple. So that really was nice. Really helped a lot, because I was returning very well and then serving much better as well. So I made some adjustments, which maybe I'll talk about in a future episode. I'm sure I will. But the recap here with the lessons. Number 1, I formation plus give the server their preferred ground stroke and then switch it up here and there to confuse your opponents. Number 2, go after the weaker volleyer. Number 3, move forward to the net when the opponent is backed up and also pinch to one side in that situation as well. Number 4, practicing no ad points really pays off if that's the format you're playing, in the tournament. Number 5, schedule multiple practices before a tournament or, regional, sectionals, nationals. And then the bonus lessons were understanding what your opponent likes and doesn't like, i.e. their strengths and weaknesses, timing the poach correctly, and it's critical to practice your serve and returns for doubles. So that is it. Again, really proud of our 5.0 men's team for getting second place, narrowly making sectionals despite missing 2 of our strongest team members. And also shout out to the 5.0 ladies. I actually think they were DC, now I forget, but friends with them, and they got second place too. Just ran up against a really tough team. I forget if it was, again, I'm sorry for getting all the details, but might have been Richmond that won that too. But they had a really good singles player that, from who played in college recently, and just too good. But and then who else? Shout out to 4-5 ladies. They won and they're going to nationals. Got a bunch of friends on there, so you know who you are. And that's about it. So I really hope that you enjoyed this podcast episode. And it's just, again, super fun to compete. Highly encourage you to get into the USA Leagues. If you are not in there already, you're going to meet a lot of great people from a similar skill level and also other skill levels. We have, leagues that also mix up skill levels. So that's super fun. Combo, tri-level, all that stuff. So those are actually those 2 leagues I mentioned are the ones coming up. Some mixed high tri leagues. So just, there's no shortage of leagues, which makes it fun. So hoping to get the band together again next year for 5.0 and run it back. And it'll be very interesting, especially with the Richmond team having to, I guess, break up with the 3-person rule. It'll be, again, it'll be very interesting. So yeah, I would like to run it back, as you can tell. But that's it. And thanks so much for listening. If you did enjoy the show, I would love it if you would leave a review for the show. You can do that by going to tennisfiles.com/Apple Podcasts with an S at the end. Leaving a review on that platform. Apple Podcasts will give the biggest impact to the show in terms of the visibility and views and whatever. So but a review in any format, of course, is appreciated. Leave it there. Another platform, Spotify, Google Podcasts, DM me, email, write me a letter. Actually, maybe not write me a letter. I don't feel like giving my address out. But yeah, so thanks a lot. And I want to leave you with a quote, as I do at the end of each show. And this one is by Doris Lessing. And Doris said, "That is what learning is. You suddenly understand something you've understood all your life, but in a new way." Really love that quote. Yeah, just trying to think what else. But we've got a really cool interview coming up next episode with Benjamin Kate, great player, top player from this area, and now playing it at UNC. And he also played the qualies at City Open a few weeks ago. Just met him randomly when I was practicing for sectionals, and excited to present that interview to you. So have a great one. Keep improving your tennis game. Pick a lesson from today and implement it, and have a great one. Cheers.